Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. First thing on our agenda is approval minutes of July 7th in the morning and July 7th at 7:30 at night. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes with the editing correction of the date. Is it from January to July? Is that the date that's,
Oh, see, it says January.
morning and evening? Right. I think that's
Must
the
be
one.
June?
Hey,
Was
that-
it June?
was
Is it
that
June?
part of the
I think it was July 20.
Well, if on July 7th we were approving minutes, they must have been
From
from
June, right. I think that was the only thing.
Was it June 23 or June 22? Okay.
Yeah, just have to look back, that's all.
Right.
I'd make a motion, I make a motion that we approve the minutes with that one editing correction.
Second. I have a couple other things on that though. On the first page under public comment, where Joanna asked about making the town hall more attractive for the celebrations, I think we should mention that Don Bachman and Tom Bechtel had offered to volunteer their services for that if the town would haul away the debris.
Gordon did say yes.
He did, but it just says you asked about making the town hall more attractive for the celebrations, period. It makes no mention of how that's gonna happen,
Oh, okay.
so I think it would be,
So this was discussed and we covered enough.
I think we know how it happened.
I don't know, just said this was
We can bring it up
discussed,
again and
so.
once it all.
I mean, if you don't wanna give anyone credit, I get it.
I'd be
but-
glad to give them credit. I just think this is adequate at this point.
On that bridge meeting that you had mentioned, I think it was Roger was going to the gravel bank in Flat Rocks. Did you attend that?
Which,
Oh, sorry, page 2.
page 2?
It's not really a correction to it, I'm just wondering if you attended that in the end.
Page 2. Bridge meeting.
Bridge meeting.
Yes. I did attend that.
Yeah. What were your
In the
thoughts
minutes.
on the beavers on Flat Rocks?
I attended the meeting with the consultant here, and Roger is getting a proposal back from the consultant, so I haven't heard about the beavers. I did mention it to them. So but yeah, but the minutes are accurate as far as.
Yeah, oh yeah, they
what
are. It
happened.
was just a question that I had on
Haven't heard about the
what
beavers up
happened.
there.
Okay, that was it.
Okay, so all those in favor of the one correction of January to June? All those in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have additions to the agenda. I had several. First was Houstonic Railroad spraying update.
So it's 3, this one isn't this set.
What was the July 15th meeting?
That was the special meeting.
Oh, right.
Okay, additions to the agenda, I had several. One was Houstonic Railroad spraying. Second was report on trout program at the covered bridge. Third was kayaks, proposal for Hammond Beach. And fourth was Goshen Cornwall Senior Van Grant Award. Are there any other additions to the agenda?
I'll second those additions.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Communications, we've had a lot, some through the mail, some through email. We got a nice card from Lydia McDavid thanking us for awarding her the Marie Baum Scholarship. Anyway, it's very nice. Note, the board also received a long letter from Lori Simmons, who has been working on the film that was shot in Cornwall Village last month. And lists all the local businesses and people involved with the film. So I thought that was interesting. Also, we got a letter from Rick Lynn today congratulating us, the town of Cornwall and the town of Goshen, for receiving the grant to buy a wheelchair accessible grant, as it's a fairly competitive program. Got a communication this afternoon from Paul Barron asking to be put on to volunteer to be added to the Conservation Commission. With that, do you want to act on that tonight? Do you want to just receive it and think about it, act on it next week, or next meeting?
I didn't get the letter, so does
Yeah.
it just say I want to be on, or
He
does
just
it
said
have
I
his
want-
qualifications? Or
Just said he would like to volunteer. So,
have we heard from the Conservation Commission
No.
on it? No.
I mean, the one meeting I was at, he was at, so I know he does. He's already attending the meetings, which should give him credit for doing that.
We probably should sit on it for, and do this.
Right,
next
so, and I,
meeting.
you know, I have no,
Yeah, it's a problem, but if we received it, we could contemplate.
if you
it
want to
further.
think about it and
Contemplate it further.
talk to people on the commission or whatever. Also, just got this afternoon a email which we'll forward to you, quite lengthy, from Rick Lynn again. There was a proposal that was put in late in the legislative session that would mandate that the council governments provide a regional elections monitor. I know a lot of the towns feel this is unnecessary. I'm skeptical myself. But anyway, apparently it's the law that was passed. Rick participated in a conference call and said that the Northwest Council of Governments is opposed to the implementation of our region. So anyway, I'll forward that. The good news is this is not effective this election. It will be the next one, but apparently there's some provision that all council of governments must have a regional elections monitored to make sure everything goes smoothly. So that's another issue that is new and to be continued.
So it is going to happen, it is something that was passed,
Right.
it's just
It's
a
in the
matter of timing.
right. And funding.
Well, it's unfunded, there is no funding.
Right, but to hire somebody, you have to come up with the money somewhere. So the
Well,
question
the
is
town
where.
that Cogs will have to, yeah.
So
from
the
all
question
towns.
is where does money come from?
It's also
How many
possible
hours?
to
What's the
be,
job description? How does this interface with the registrars?
Yeah, that was
I
one
mean,
thing
it's
that I
like-
didn't see a lot of was, what are the time requirements? Is
I mean-
it like wicked part-time, like it's just a couple hours?
Yes.
You have to give them office space, equipment, and supplies. So,
One would think there's not a lot to do with this time of year. This is not an
Right.
election, but anyway, it's something the council governments will be.
but during the year,
Right.
they're also required to give training to
for-
the registrars. So
Yes.
there's like 3 or 4 things that they have to do during the year with the registrars to give them continuing ed.
Right. said some council governments are in favor. So anyway, we'll learn more as we go along. Also from the highway department, we put down the first recycled asphalt. The town has done is the COG bought a asphalt recycler, so we get millings from the state when they ground up things like Route 7. We can go down with a truck, but receive ground up asphalt from state projects or even local projects. And then we have a box that you heat up the asphalt. It doesn't liquefy, but it reconstitutes itself. You put in a special activating sauce and some shingles, and out comes pavement, which is nice that it's a recycled product. It's not going to waste, and it's much less expensive than having to buy fresh asphalt. And they did it on Hawkway Hill Road over a culvert. So if you want to see it on the Route 63 end, it looked
Several
good as
tons.
I drove over it. Yeah, probably a couple tons worth we put out, and it's nice because it keeps it's nice, and the box itself is heated, so it goes out really hot, so it doesn't clump together. I haven't heard, I just drove over it, they said they're still working out some of the bugs on how do you transfer it from pile to mix and all this other stuff, so I'm sure they're working on it, but it looks good.
Is that something we could actually, that we could use for repairs, all kinds of repairs, not just
Yeah.
on culvert,
Oh yeah, absolutely, we'll be using it probably for, potholes or whatever else.
maybe the skid
And
box?
especially for, in the wintertime, you could actually, extend the season of doing potholes with a machine. So now the COG has sweeper, back truck, hot box, and they're just getting some sand and gravel screeners through the state program. So all those machines the town will be able to use, and we can use them all. So it's a good program. So that's one of.
Is it first come, first serve?
There is a reservation log kept at the garage that houses it. I believe Norfolk houses this, and different garages house different pieces. So it's scheduled out, and I think they try to do it so each town can have use of it, at some point during the season.
I mean, to get the millings.
That, I believe, is being coordinated by the town of Kent, so Jim's working with the highway foreman.
Oh, so it just depends
that.
on where they're milling.
Right, so he has to go through him because he's coordinating the municipal contacts and getting the millings.
Yeah, and that culvert on Hopway Hill, the last time I went over it was gravel, so did they dig it up and figure out why it was compromised, or did they just cut the asphalt and gravel it and then pave over it?
I believe they replaced the pipe. It was an older pipe that just had worn out, so they replaced the pipe, put gravel in it to pack it, let people drive over it, and then they take some of the asphalt out, or some of the gravel out, pave it on top. Okay?
Presumably it was pavement until it was dug up and replaced.
Right.
And
Yeah.
we didn't allow it to settle for a while.
Any other communications? Any public comments?
Yeah, I would just like to clarify between Gordon, you and Richard, because I did get someone to take all the, as I mentioned to you, all of the bittersweet out of the Christmas tree that we decorate for the 275th with the solar lights on the Cornwall Bridge Green, and there is quite a pile of stuff there. And you mentioned that the town crew was very busy, and Richard said to me he thought it was a state responsibility to come pick it up, and it's obviously not going to fit in my car. So I'm hoping that together the two of you can find a way to get it picked up.
I'm sure we can, but we have things like our hot box, we gotta fit it into the other things we got going, but.
Yeah, well, it's
We'll
just a
try to
big
get
pile,
done.
and I don't want it to kill all the grass.
How much is there, like a pickup truck or a dump truck?
A pickup truck.
And then where would it go from there?
We'd just take it down to the brush pile, probably and burn it when we get, but we'd have to get the backhoe down there. I wanna keep on going with this asphalt machine.
Oh, you need
Or
to
do-
actually bring the backhoe down, you think? You
Probably.
can't just.
I mean,
I don't know.
I'll look at it tomorrow. I have a pickup.
It's about 4 feet high and 6 feet wide.
Okay, any other public comments?
Gordon,
Yeah, Pete?
what's the status on the paint disposal?
That's on the agenda.
It's, well, yeah, it's on the agenda, but we signed, contract's been signed,
Oh,
and we've checked with DEP that they said we can do this under our general permit to operate the transfer station. And I talked to Steve, and he's got a place for it. So it will be, as soon as we get the contract back from Pink here, then we'll find out how soon they'll drop the units off. So should be fairly soon.
all right, good, thanks.
Nice, we can check that one off too.
Right. Okay. Any other public comments? Let's see. First thing is the building official contract. Paul is in his adapted office down at Northeast Building Supplies, and he's requesting a 1-year extension on his contract. So he does a great job, and I hope he will be with us for more than 1 year, but he's, at this point, he thought a 4-year contract would be, seem like a long time, and so he's requesting a 1-year extension on his contract.
Did anything change, reimbursements,
No, it
his
stays,
percentage, our percentage, any of that?
stay the same for what he has now.
Our rates are still the same, our fees. So do we need a motion to?
Yeah,
authorize
I'll make a
him to
motion to extend the contract. I mean, he does a great job and just bounced back from getting burned out of his other office. I'll make a motion that we extend his contract for 1 year.
sign? I'll second that.
So you're gonna change this because it says 4 years?
Right. So, and we'll type up the new dates and things. But I suppose, yeah, we'll run from into 2016.
So it's part of the contract that he shall provide the office space for the town. So you'll have this next time for signatures?
Yeah, we all sign it, or just,
Oh, there was just a witness,
Right.
first selectman witness, which happened to be Casey, that's why I just thought it was all of us for a second there.
So do we, if we approve it now, we'll sign it? I mean, it'll be, and
Right.
we'll sign it?
yeah.
That-
So why don't we make, make a motion, well, I made a motion, we extend it, and,
Yeah, and he seconded it, so.
right, any more discussion? All in favor? Aye. Next, sidewalks. We had an interesting meeting with Roger Kane down West Cornwall and Cornwall Bridge. Looking at potential sidewalks now that we have a grant extension at the end of the year. We met with some local residents, butters. And it's interesting, most of the time we go down and look at proposed sidewalk in West Cornwall, there was somebody walking down the middle of the road. And this time there was 3 young women, one playing a ukulele, walking up the middle of the road. So it definitely does seem to be if not a need, a potential use of the sidewalk. We did meet with Libby Mitchell, who owns the abutting property. The sidewalk would all be on state property, which I think is an important consideration. They would allow sidewalks to be built on private property, as it turned out. We met with Russ. He said he would be in favor of placing the sidewalk in front of his store with the concrete as his asphalt is crumbling somewhat. Did invite Priscilla. Unfortunately, she couldn't
We'd
make
be
it, I guess.
delighted to have the sidewalk
Right.
go up in front of Bain. And you might say it's personal property, but when we bought the building, we learned that that's really state property. We
Yeah,
would lose the first 10 feet of our building.
right. So all the sidewalk would be on state property, not
Yeah.
on private property.
We'd
And
love to have a sidewalk.
and Roger, next step is Roger draws up some rough schemes, and we would make dips for the driveways and also increase the ability to get handicap, wheelchairs,
Mhm.
especially into the
Good.
moose and stuff, and because now it's a little rough getting in there, so I think there would also be would make a little more easy accessibility to hopefully that
Make it a
part of
lot
town.
safer. I mean, when it gets busy, whether it's summer or fall, they're always walking.
Do you agree?
across the middle of the
There's
road.
also somebody walking down the middle of the
They're
road,
in the middle of the road.
and that,
They think it's Disney World.
praise the Lord, nobody's been
It is.
hit yet that I know of, but it just would make it better. We did look at several locations, whether to put it right on the road edge, right all the way over by the picket fence, and the general consensus was to set it back, sort of halfway in the lawn. That would allow it, so if there was small storms, all the snow wouldn't automatically go on the sidewalk. And you'd still have a nice grass area there. And most of the abutting is done by the former Pink House, so, and Libby was very interested and thought it would add to the,
Who would maintain the sidewalks though in the
so
winter?
the town would have to contract that out, as we don't. We're pretty busy now, but I did talk to some stone removal people, and they said it is possible for them to do it. I mean, in bigger places, they have a town crew outfitted with a snow blower and stuff, but I think that would be a lot of equipment for a fairly small job at this point. So that would be my thought, is, we would have to contract.
Well, you can hire my snow blower out. I have one behind the wish house I use on the.
Excellent. So, I mean, there may be people
Okay.
that we can contract with, so that'd be good. Side business, Richard. It's
So the next step is that Roger's going to draw up some plans, and we're gonna end up with putting it out to bid to see
Right,
where that fits into the,
right. He did some rough estimates. He still thinks $70,000 would do sidewalks in West Cornwall and in Cornwall Bridge, which is a separate whole discussion, but he felt we're doing okay with budget, but he would do a design build, so we wouldn't engineer the specs. We would say, this is basically what we want to do, have them come with some sort of approved plan to run past DOT.
So that would be one full proposal price, we wouldn't be paying extra for the engineering?
Correct.
And what's the reimbursement for the?
100. percent.
Oh, it's a bonus, yeah.
Yeah, and, yeah, so it's a little more involved with doing the part down by the Moose. But, what else?
What about the other
Was
side of the street, Gordon, by the ends? Are you
Um,
putting a sidewalk there?
No, because I don't think there's people that park there. The beauty of this would be we wouldn't lose any parking. So we have enough money just to do this part. It's what we would propose to the state, we just do this side of it.
And is there just gonna be a grass strip in between the road, or parking, or the road, grass, sidewalk,
Picket fence.
even? So who's gonna maintain the grass?
Same people that do now probably. Homeowners.
So the homeowner will maintain the grass
Yeah.
part, but will contract out snow removal.
Right.
The situation in Cornwall Bridge is a little different.
Right, we went to, yeah, the other thing that we have to get back to is, I talked to Barbara, and the town has not approved expending this money, so we're gonna have to go to the Board of Finance to a town meeting to spend the money, so
We
that's,
didn't know if they extended the contract or not, the offer.
yeah, so that has to be done fairly soon. We can always go out to bid pending town approval, talk to Russ a little bit about, we don't want this necessarily happening in the height of leaf season, so there are some considerations.
How about any sidewalk on the Wish House property?
I was just gonna ask, is there any leeway so that it could be extended a
Can
little
extend it
further?
up further.
Well, that would cut into your farm stand. You know, you do the farm,
There's
Or-
also
or-
the problem with
guard-
the
guardrail.
guardrail right
yeah,
there.
the guard, yeah.
So it would sort of end, it would, I mean, you could run it up to the brook and then what do you do?
Would you have to put in some sort of a, at the crossing, some sort of pedestrian barriers then?
Well, we'll talk when the state comes out. Originally, we wanted a crosswalk near the railroad tracks to cross from post office sidewalk to this sidewalk, and they said you can't put a pedestrian crossing that close to the railroad tracks, was the last round we went with that one. Sidewalks. Where's the state line on your land? The state
I
line
was
all the
told
way
it
up to
was
your
10
house?
foot into the,
I mean, Richard.
I don't know, I'm not sure.
So, right now, I think we probably have our hands full just getting
Okay.
up to that far up the hill. So then, we went down to Cornwall Bridge. We didn't make any decisions, but anyway, I was struck by how nice Mark has made a nice little area there. When we originally applied for the grant, that visitor center picnic table area wasn't there. I don't think Bonnie Brook was there. So the plan was to try to connect the two buildings, which now has been sort of connected by lawn and landscaping. And then we were told by the state we couldn't put sidewalk on private property. So it'd have to go on the Route 7 side of the
Stone wall.
of the stone wall. There are only realistic places to put it right next to the stone wall. And it seemed like what's different in Cornwall Bridge too, it would only go to Bonnie Brook. It seemed like most people go to Bonnie Brook and just easily, if they want to walk, just cut right through to the picnic tables, or get in the car and drive to the store. And then you sort of dead end there. Then if you're walking farther down, you're sort of back to the shoulder, and the shoulder there is like 8 feet wide. So I don't think there's the pedestrian traffic that there is in West Cornwall. There's a much wider shoulder, and I just don't think there's quite the need for it.
I also think the construction in Cornwall Bridge would be more difficult because you
Because there's
have
a drainage feature.
there's a
You got
drainage and then at the other end there's a bump and there's two different water courses or intermittent water courses that have to be crossed or dealt with in some fashion. And I think we initially were thinking it was just, the sidewalk was just gonna cut right, the diagonal right to Bonnie Brook. I think that was the point of it, to go from Bonnie Brook, sort of the front door, right to the store. And the need there doesn't seem to be as great or as valid or as easy to implement when you look at it.
Yeah, I mean, I walk over there several times a week, and I take the cut through over the
Right.
patio area. I have, in the winter, we don't maintain that little
Right.
cut through, so I have walked on Route 7 to get over to the market, and 8 feet or not, man, it's frightening when then people zoom by you.
Yeah.
You know, but I think at that point in time, you know, residents would just drive if they don't feel safe enough to walk.
Again, you know, you got the maintenance thing,
Yeah.
you know, it's a,
It
it's a
and
bunch
it
of
doesn't seem
ongoing
like it really
expense.
goes anywhere. I mean, I think I've seen people walk there that probably are hiking the trail that go
Yeah,
to the
or going-
motel.
south. You know, they're going to,
Well, they're between the motel and the market getting dinner.
or they're going, you know, hiking, you know, they're going all the way to Kent or Kent Falls, or they're going somewhere besides the
I haven't
firehouse.
seen anyone walk that far. Past the motel, that's it.
So,
I think that we ought to drop the concept of the Cornwall Bridge sidewalks at this point, the Cornwall Bridge aspect to this.
But our total grant is 70,
correct.
and you think that would be used up just in West Cornwall anyway.
There may be some left over where,
But if there was left over, maybe it could go higher up towards the Wish House.
it could, but I think we'd have to look at that again with Roger and see how that all fits in with the lay of the land and the guardrails that are there.
I'd like less lawn to mow.
Maybe we can look at it informally and see if it makes sense, if it lays out. I don't know how it works, you know, if it ends at the railroad tracks,
And then picks up again.
Because it's
Yeah.
not gonna, it's also not going to,
it's not gonna go all the way past Todd's store.
right, it's not gonna cross the pottery either. It's gonna end,
Because they got a parking spot
At
right
the,
there.
Right, parking spot and the porches out there.
well, it's actually gonna end at the I think at the line with the pink house. So there's the driveway that goes through, it's gonna end before that driveway. So that 20 feet wouldn't be sidewalked, it would be parking space, his porch.
Right,
uh,
right.
Then you gotta cross Railroad Street before you.
I know, but if you have sort of that sight line of continued sidewalk, it might entice people to walk up further to get to the Wish House. Instead of just stopping at the end and going, oh, that's it. Just thought if there's extra money, you know,
Yeah.
even just the visual, even if you end up with just a short piece of sidewalk in front of the store, you know.
Uh-huh. All right, we'll look at that. But at this point, we'll have Roger do a RFP for what we looked at last time. Then have him look at it, see if it's a big deal or not. There's an easy way to do stuff. He's got the stone wall there and everything. Stone wall?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There.
The stone wall next to the pink house. The lawn is actually retained by a stone wall. It's- So, all right. So is that a motion to go ahead with the sidewalks in West Cornwall? We looked at, I did mention this to the Board of Finance casually, but we'll have to,
When do they meet again?
we're not meeting again in August, so we'll
They
have to.
don't meet in August.
Right. So, I think, talk to John or something, see, I mean, they could meet in August, they had a reason, the meetings that all the reason to meet. If we had some hard figures, they could meet. Well, I think the biggest thing is scheduling, figuring out the construction sequence, when the town meeting would happen,
Right.
getting something, if we can meet, we'll put this on again next meeting and try to get something publicized in the Chronicle for a September town meeting. If that's even
This
close.
this project needs to be done and completed by December 31st.
Correct. Right.
So it is gonna get tight then.
Right.
Because if we have the Riverfest, September 16th, 19th.
Right.
You mean the bridge dance?
No, the bridge dance, the Riverfest is in
Oh,
August.
that's right, the bridge
Right.
dance, right.
There's a lot of stuff going on in August and
Right.
September. But I think the biggest thing is to try to, I don't think there's a problem getting couple of the other question too is we're assuming this is concrete, not, we should think that through because it's important. You could put an asphalt sidewalk in.
Well, we talked about, I
And you
think
could
concrete
do
is
pavers and people
concrete is
felt those
still
paving
the way to
stones
go.
move around. So we're back to
Right here.
concrete, so at least we can make that decision, whatever we do, concrete costs more, lasts longer. So we can go to concrete, there's companies that just do sidewalks
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
get some RFPs, get some rough sketches for next meeting, some RFPs, get some prices.
And maybe it ends up happening in the third week or fourth
Right.
week of October.
Right, and what we can do also is say, to spend up to the $70,000. I have no problem if we don't spend 70, sending some back to the state as they seem to need. They could use some extra money nowadays. Or something, we can figure out the language of how do we do it. And as I said, I think it's important to publicize it and put something in the Chronicle and set some town meeting for early September probably.
Yeah, I guess the annual town meeting in October will be a little late.
That's a little late, yeah. Russell's ideal construction time is September, is what he said, so. Possible.
Russ.
Zwicky, the Wandering Moose, because that's gonna be, if we redo the sidewalk in front of his building, he does have a side entrance people can come into. But losing the front entrance or having it torn up is gonna be somewhat of an impact, especially as October can be one of the busier months. But I'll ask Roger, 'cause the other thing we can do too is with some of these companies, see how this may be a week project, this may be could be a month project.
Yeah.
Concrete takes time to set up.
Right. Yeah, all
Yeah.
those questions will need to be answered. And he also gets
Well, I think
Right.
this is
free
a,
sidewalk in front of
this is
his
a week.
store.
This
This
is a week.
this
I
is-
think the big advantage too is it's not like we're replacing something, most of this is being done when there's no sidewalk now. So they're gonna be off the road, nobody's walking there anyway, the only real impact is right in front of the Moose Center.
And the concrete's hard
Right.
enough to walk on the second day.
Right.
I would
So we
think.
can schedule it and maximize it, so.
Can you ask about pavers or impressed concrete, something that looks a little more historic, just to get an idea of how much? Because I've seen it done elsewhere, and it really wasn't that much more expensive.
Pressed concrete's kind of ugly. It's kind of cheesy looking.
It might be harder to clean.
Pavers move a lot here. Go walk down the sidewalk in Litchfield. I think I tripped
Well, I've
twice
seen the press stuff,
going
and
down
it
West
looks
Street.
fantastic, you wouldn't notice the difference between that and
Well,
pavers.
look like Waterbury or Hartford if you do all concrete,
Yeah, I know, it's
Wow.
not like beautiful. None of it's
not very
If you
attractive.
go through Canaan sometime, just look at the sidewalks that they did for streetscape. They've been there years, they haven't moved, they look great, they're not, I forget what they are, they're not full pavers.
beautiful. Where is it?
In Canaan,
But where?
on Main Street.
All over.
I just drive. But I'll have to walk, okay?
Okay, so we'll get hold of Roger, get some feedback from concrete companies for next meeting.
So is there a motion to go ahead with the sidewalk project?
In West Cornwall.
I think Richard made that. No,
Did I make a motion to do that?
I thought you said.
Do you want to make a
I'll
motion?
make a motion that we continue to pursue the sidewalk construction in West Cornwall and continue to pursue it until we either complete the project or find out some reason we don't want to.
Second that? Any more discussion? All in favor? Aye. Cornwall Bridge hydrant, if we can't provide sidewalks, maybe we can provide a hydrant. So, I did talk to DOT local, working my way up the chain, and they said it's not an unreasonable request, but they want specifics. Where is it gonna be, how big, this kind of thing. So Jim Bannicky is looking into tanks. So fiberglass is probably the way to go. So we're gonna get some estimates, and we'll probably have some estimates at our next meeting.
Where's this money coming from?
We have money in capital for fire hydrants. So hopefully we'll
Enough
have
to
enough.
cover the whole thing, you think?
Hopefully, yeah. And then also Fred Scoville, the fire chief, wants to improve the water supply underneath the bridge in Cornwall Bridge too, so we do two things. Cornwall Bridge. That's more,
How do you improve that?
either re-pipe into the water or get something closer
Into the river, you mean?
into the river.
Make a better pond.
Yeah.
Pond.
So, but I think we can hopefully do this, but we'll know. I think it makes sense to do it, and I think we hopefully have enough money. So anyway, we'll keep that on the agenda in the front burner. Was Cornwall wastewater. We had a good meeting this morning with Ann Strother from the state DEEP, who's very helpful with the process.
It's Strout.
Crowder.
Strout, S-T-R-A-U-T.
Is another person here?
Then, and Kathy Weber, Tom Stansel from the Victoria Health, and various boards, commissions, business people. But it was good. It's a big project, a lot of potential.
So it sounded like the next step would be for us to appoint a committee?
That's certainly one of the next steps. I think in my mind, the next step, first thing that I would like to see us hear reactions of, pursuing. First thing is a study of what's some of the alternatives, because there's quite a few alternatives of dealing with the water and the septic issues. So first thing is a study.
Study by who?
A study by an engineer, which would then would have to be hired by, a committee.
Right, so the
Right.
first step is the committee
Right.
to choose the engineer that would do the study.
Right. But I'd like to see first some more information from similar communities to see, how this all works. Talk to, Karen suggested talk to Canaan, just a big sewer expansion up there. Norfolk, talked to people who've gone through the grant process, and then Lee did say it's $300,000. I think we have to do a little background for townspeople, get a good scope of the works.
And we is we who? Is you or
I think,
Todd Piker?
I think the board has, then, when we have an idea of the scope of the study, then, think about appointing a committee that would then go through this QBS process to then hire a consultant to do a study.
We have to determine what the charge of the
Right.
committee is going to be. What do we want the committee to do? And I also think it's critically important that we, the town, and/or the committee, define at some level what we want the study to be, what we want it to be studied. It's like you can hire a lawyer, you can hire an engineer to do lots of things, and they'll run wild. You gotta kind of tell them what you want, and then they work on that. I mean, it's a little different in this in that we're not quite sure what we want. Do we want water? Do we want septic? Do we want it and for this many houses? Do we want it for this many houses? So it's a little open-ended, as it's been said a number of times. But we have to define some of that. I don't think we can, if we give the engineers a wide open carte blanche, do whatever you want, tell us what we should do. It'll be all the $300,000, and they'll give us several proposals. I think we have to define, and that's a hard part. That is a hard part. Well, at some level, what are we trying to do?
I think also we want to think of who wants to be on the committee. I mean, I think if you had all business people from West Cornwall, you might get one study. Do you want to have representation throughout the town? Do you want to have residents and business people? Because, do you want to have people that aren't in West Cornwall that may have some engineering background. So I think my thought is what we probably should do is say we are, I mean, I'm at this point in favor of looking at it into a study, looking at other towns, forming a group, putting it out there, see who might be interested in being on it. But I think we also want to think of how do we get a balance of representation on the committee. I think this could be one of the bigger projects the town ever has undertaken. So I think this board wants to give it some guidance, if not direct representation on the committee.
Right, and so that's my question. You keep saying, we wanna do this and we wanna do that. It's we who, like us, so we're gonna meet and discuss what we want this committee to look at. We are gonna contact these other towns and see what the cost was, what their experiences are. You know, Richard's doing it, you're doing it, I'm doing it, who's doing it?
I'm planning to contact some of the other towns.
Okay.
Ann said she'd have a list of some other towns that have done similar things, even though I've already contacted the COG towns, and nobody said they've done anything quite like this recently. Other towns said we've had similar concerns, but we haven't decided to go into the study phase.
How about Burlington? Because they're part of our COG now, right? Do they have
Right.
sewers?
Well, I mean, probably half the towns do have some sort of sewer or water system. Most towns have something. And it is interesting, like Norfolk and Kent, which aren't that much bigger than we are already looking at replacing their systems, which are
They're
over
pretty
100 years
old,
old. I mean,
yeah.
they're over 100 years old, so at some point, 100 years ago, somebody said the town needs a
For
sewer,
another board to worry about.
or
Yeah,
whatever, or
that's a long time ago.
they've had a sewer for a long time, so at some point, somebody said that's, makes a lot of sense for whatever reason. There probably was more manufacturing there, or, who knows, but that's another aside.
Yeah.
But I thought Norfolk, I plan to talk to people in Norfolk and Canaan, as well as gather information. My feeling is we've got 275th, we've got a lot of stuff going on this month. I'll gather more information. We'll put it out there through the Chronicle and the papers that we're thinking of doing a study group. We'd like to know who'd be interested in doing that. We, the board, think about balance, representation, how many people. We'll find out, is there a statutory, because normally this goes through the Water Pollution Control Agency, which the town doesn't have. Is there a statutory requirement when we have a study group? I don't know. Does the town meeting can the board of selectmen just appoint it? Does the town meeting have to appoint it? So there's a bunch of preliminary stuff that we'd look at, and then I would say we try to get our ducks in a row and support, and also talk to the Board of Finance, say this is going on. The other questions out there, I asked Ann, the range of $100,000 to $300,000, even with a 50% reimbursement, that's a big range for something that we do not have budgeted. So the other options out there is capping the study at $100,000. She says, well, you don't want to do that because you might get a good one for 120.
Right.
But there is, eventually somebody's going to say that's quite a bit of money, and we have to be familiar ourselves with, as we are going to go back to the town asking for money for the study, how does the whole process work going forward, and the QBS stuff. So I would propose that we, if it's consensus of the board, to move forward on looking at a study group, and then maybe appoint something next month. We get more information from towns and whatever else in the next month or so.
Yeah, Kathy didn't really give a sense of, I know she's working on more information on that map that she had.
Right.
She didn't really give an indication of
I
how
asked
long
her.
it would take. She just keeps saying, I'm working on it.
Right. Yes, she said she would get it going on it by Labor Day. But as it's going to take a while for this group to get organized and even meet and interview people or get the QBA, figure out how the QBS thing works, the key thing is to have that study done when they select, when they start selecting people, because if hopefully there's a complete inventory of what's going on now, that could save a lot of money on the study. Some,
Yeah, and another thing that came out today was that, yeah, the business people had been involved in this discussion, but really not a lot of the residential homeowners. So how are we
Correct.
gonna try to pull them in?
well, that's another whole consideration too. I mean, that one thing that came up at the economic development meeting with Goma, New York, was this idea of visioning the future for the town, its economy and its community. It's a time to have one of those sessions which lasts, you know, a weekend or something, and they have people plan it. Because one of my minor thoughts is to think of, you know, use this. I mean, what village are we really planning this for? Is this to take some time to do? Is this an opportunity to have a more vital, are we just doing it for the houses there now, the businesses there now? Are we gonna ask this person to look in for something that's bigger? And if you have some sort of those meetings, you know, it's which comes first, but you're gonna have to have some of those assumptions in order to go ahead, and there certainly does need to be public input
Yeah. And the-
soon.
Didn't the planning collaborative hire consultants, economic development consultant? Didn't they have a grant of 200?
Yeah,
That's
that's
Goma,
Goma, New York, and he's
Goma.
willing to do something like that, although he wasn't particular, I mean, he also has gone through and met with the business and stuff. But he had talked about that whole, you know, community planning process as a useful thing. And he has people that can pull something like that off. So that's the answer how you might get some people thinking, this is what we see for West Cornwall.
I was just surprised that no representative from their company was there today. 'Cause I guess I don't really understand what their charge is and
Going
how
to New
involved they're supposed to get with each town. I mean, from the meeting when they were introduced to everyone, it sounds like, oh yeah, we're gonna be there, we're gonna be in, we're gonna do this for all the towns, and no, and I never see them anywhere,
Well, they were
so.
here at the last, they've been at the economic development meetings, and they have met with a lot of the businesses and things. And they said they have this open invitation sometime this fall to do some, you know, community interaction thing. That might be a good way to combine a couple of these things.
I don't go to the economic development meetings, it's a hard time for me, so, but that's good that they at least go to
But I
that,
think
so they
that
know where we're at.
that may be a group we can use.
And whatever committee is created won't necessarily be all the people that are up to speed on this already, or gone to several of the meetings. It could be someone who's interested, or I think as you're saying, you want to have a diverse, somewhat diverse group of people on the
I mean,
committee.
On the way out, Josh Dodson texted, you don't want to put anything near the river because that's in the flood zone. So all of a sudden you start looking at some of these constraints of being near the river, having a brook go through the middle of your village. I mean, it's an engineering.
That's what Ann Strout was saying too, was that when you put in your request, the state will look at, was it resiliency?
Yeah, durability.
Durability and resiliency for the
absolutely.
big storm events, so.
Yeah.
She admitted it was a buzzword. She said,
It's a
the
good
word that goes around now is resiliency.
Yeah, well, it's a good thing.
Well, yeah, as long as it's gonna keep going, I just wanted to
I
know what
think
the
it
next steps were.
So I think we'll put something in the Chronicle that we are looking into this, and we're gonna, you know, try to appoint a study group in the fall and work with the state, look at other communities, see what they've done, and, you know, look at,
I mean,
see how it-
what I said at the meeting, you know, slow and steady to get to the
Well,
right place
Slow and
is,
steady, that was one of the first meetings I went to in this town when I moved here 15 years ago, was a wastewater meeting for West Cornwall. And that probably wasn't the first time we talked about it, so.
yeah,
well, it's certainly farther along now than it has been, because we're talking about doing a study on it
Oh, yeah, it didn't even make it that far.
for a significant amount of money. So if we're going to do a study for a significant amount of money to do a project for significantly more money, then you want the project right, you want the study right, and you want the town to be on board with it. to be able to have it all happen. I think that those are really important factors in moving it forward, is that everybody feels that they weren't told it was happening, they were part of the process of it happening.
And talk to other towns too and see what, you know, if this happens, what are the hookup fees or what's the impact? You know, we talked about putting sidewalks, what's the impact of, you know,
Let's not dig up our new sidewalks.
right? But if you dig up Route 128, that would get people's attention. So, anyway, we'll proceed to put that forward. All right, anything else on wastewater? Budget transfers, do we have some from Barbara? Do you have packages done?
Here somewhere. So these are some transfers necessary to finish the budget, is that close out the,
Right, so you have several budget transfers, you have an unaudited fiscal year 2015 report from Barbara. We are looking at some budget transfers, even with the budget transfers and using some contingency, we're looking at still having a surplus somewhere over $50,000, which is good and required by state law. So we're typically looking at 3 budget transfers. Do you have a package from Barbara Joyce?
I got it, I can see she gave one to Richard once ago.
Good.
maybe you can make heads or.
All right. So I could, if you, I think I know.
Did you see this at all?
Yeah, I've seen it, that we talked, the Board of Finances actually approved these because, what was the thing, that she hadn't got the final numbers done, and they met last week, so they have signed off on these, subject to our approval. Good. So, you see our thing there, and then there's a lump sum, $22,165 to cover multiple miscellaneous overage due to circumstances. BOS temporary staffing. Sometimes we have people, when Joyce goes on vacation, sometimes we have people cover the office, sometimes Barbara does it in the afternoons. So we had hired more people than we have, or we didn't budget that fully, so that went over slightly.
So
So
you're
these are all on the back. So you have like $400 for that.
Yeah.
Then you have, the big one is highway vehicle repairs, and so that's the tire, the backhoe, that stuff. Then you
Switching to the
to
other
the
garage.
getting everything done with the truck checks. Then we have tax refunds. Fire marshal was busier than usual, unfortunately. Contracted services, I believe that's some of the work with going over to the new computer system, and town office utilities. We under budgeted that, and we also we picked up the internet at the transfer station. That was like another $100 a month. We also have the relamping charges to relamp the buildings in that. And I think that's about it. The third thing. Oh, and so then we have rebid our electrical service, so that should bring that number down about $2,000 next year. So total, those overages of 22,165, which we had in contingency.
Which is coming out of contingency for all
Right.
of these different, all
And
these different lines.
if we got even closer, we could have, there were lines that were still had quite a bit in them, like visiting nurse association. Some of the land use lines still had money in them. So we just took it all out of contingency. So I'd make a motion that we do the budget transfer for $22,000 year end. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
How much is the total amount in contingency? 35?
I think there was 30 minus 2, I think there was 28 at this time. But as you can see, even with these transfers, we're still generating a surplus of $50,000. That's your bottom line there.
And these other transfers are from capital?
Those are mostly tidying up the capital project line. Barbara is working with a new auditor, so that's good. So we have a fresh set of eyes on the town books. One suggestion she's made is that any organization that receives over 50% of its budget from the town get audited by the town auditor. So that would potentially be the fire department, the library, and the child center. The fire department probably qualifies, the library and child center are more like 20–30%, so they don't qualify. But I think it's generally held to be a good thing to have somebody look at the books freshly.
See what's going on.
What's the story on the Rumsey Hall thing? We will
Oh,
get
can we-
paid back.
We need to do this 22,000 before we get into the other ones.
Oh, these aren't part of this letter?
Correct.
Oh, okay. I thought
This
they were
is,
all
the 22,000 is
multi-area.
just
Oh, okay,
doing the expenditures for this year's general fund.
okay.
So any more discussion on that?
Is it 22,000 even, or the 22,000
It's got to be
165?
20,000.
22,165 appears to
The
be.
165,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, so all in favor? Aye. We need to sign off on that. So. Then the next one is Rumsey Hall, which was demolished several years ago, but seems to still have, 3 years ago, still seems to be in the news. So the reason why there's a supplemental, why there's this balance that needs to be paid is that a late legal bill came in after we had an agreement with the property owner for $50,000 or something, that the building would go away. There was $600 more than that in legal expenses, so the town has to eat up $600. And legal expenses are aided up, it's still on the books, and this just cleans up the book, closes out Rumsey Hall as a capital project.
Did we contact the attorney and ask for final billing before we made the agreement with the homeowner? Or the
I
property
think
owner?
it was an ongoing negotiation, touch and go as things went on.
It would have made more sense to make sure we were done. So this says cost to date, $50,604.01.
Right.
We budgeted $50,000. Amount of transfer is $601.01. So where's the $3 coming from?
I vote for a typo.
Yeah, it looks like. It
So,
should be 604.01 is what.
yeah, I have no problem with adding $3 into the transfer. So let's make the transfers 6. I'll make a motion, we transfer into that account to close out the capital projects on Rumsey Hall, $604,000
I'll second that. And I'm, based on what you're saying, this is really something that's been hanging
Right.
on the
for
capital.
2 or 3 years,
Right.
and it just closes the project out. Any other discussion on this? Yeah, we did get a lot of, we got over $6,000 in legal fees paid for by the homeowner.
Yeah, no, he still didn't pay all of it, so.
Okay, any other discussion on this? All in favor? Aye. So we'll make that 6. Okay.
This one goes back even
This,
further.
this goes back even farther, tidying up the school expansion, $378 will, tidy that up. Yes, to resolve the account, bring to zero and close capital accounts. We're closing these accounts, no more.
This is from
We're done.
2006.
Yes,
Right, so
that's deliberate,
no, I understand. I'm just saying, it's good to get things cleaned up.
right?
It's like boxes in the.
So is that a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion that we transfer,
$387.
$378.
78.
What is that for?
This is to close out the school.
No, but what's the hanging bill?
There
It
is,
says interest earned on capital investment funds. Because the invoice was paid out of capital instead of building project funds.
back in '06. Any more discussion?
Did you second?
I'll second.
It's like the old boxes you have up in the attic. Sometimes, why are they there? It's hard to say, but it's just time
Somebody's
to
looking.
clean them up.
So she has highlighted here on these transfers, 3, 4, 5. What was 1 and 2?
I think that might have been because it was the multiples in the first one we did. Or that, or there may have been others earlier in the year. I think we had several thousand of transfers. before.
Oh, okay.
That's
I
probably
think
what
we
it
did
is.
too. Okay.
That's the better answer. Yeah, so those are, 5 budget transfers for the year.
Everybody's in favor?
Everybody in favor? Aye.
And the Rumsey one is coming from capital, from contingency.
No, I think it's, what is it? I think it's coming out of, capital projects earns interest because it's a distinct vehicle, so I think it's just coming out of the interest that's been earned there. Whatever it says.
Departments
Oh,
from.
well, down here, this one is interest earned on capital investments, and this one is, looks like it's coming out of
All right, so
contingency.
it is coming out.
So the 22,000 comes out, Rumsey Hall comes out of that, and the school building comes out of interest.
Okay. All right. Let's see, next is Penn Care, as discussed earlier. Contract's been signed and sent off to Washington DC. And we checked with Steve and DEP. So we'll be good to go when we get the copy back. And put a thing in the Chronicle website, local papers. We are gonna make it for Cornwall residents only.
Is it just residents or residents and property owners?
Yeah, I don't make any distinction between that. Anybody that's Cornwall resident, property owners, taxpayers, somebody with a Cornwall
Well, it's
address.
in the book or in the contract where you could decide
Right,
who it was gonna be
Do you have to
for.
have a dumpster?
I would think you would have to have a dumpster, yes. Yes, pass through Steve. Okay, so we're good on that. Additions, Houstonic Railroad spraying. Did talk to Colin Pease at the railroad, said that they sprayed in the spring, in the fall for brush and weeds, said it was done by licensed applicator. We did talk to people at DEEP, and they said as long as it's done by a licensed applicator, a railroad does not have to notify the abutters. So then we did get a video.
Does that mean if it's done by an unlicensed applicator?
You have to notify.
And that-
You have to-
But that wasn't even the problem. The problem was how far the
Right.
overspray went. So, did he have an answer to that?
He didn't, he said that he looked at the maps and it looked like everything was in the right of way. So, next step, so that's where we got there, so. Then the next step was, send a letter off with, I think we sent a copy of the video off to Roberta and Clark Chapin. Roberta wrote back today that she has contacted several state agencies, including DEEP, saying she's concerned about this.
What was the video?
The video, which we have a copy of, is just shows basically a roadside viewing of the spray impact from Falls Village line down to West Cornwall highlights. And you can see clearly in the video the stone wall here, which would appear to be the edge of the right of way, and trees discolored on the far side of stone wall.
Who made the video?
Michael Motion.
On his own or
Yeah.
for a particular group?
He was concerned about it.
Okay, I didn't know if someone asked him to do
Yeah,
it.
he said he's concerned about pesticide sprays.
He's
In
along the
general.
river quite a bit.
Right,
Yeah.
and he said also he's concerned about the eagles that are nesting right near the tracks at Cornwall. So so Roberta has that and is going with it. Haven't heard back from Clark, and I will get back to Colin when we hear more things, and I think there will be more people contacting the board with concerns from the community.
Was that, did he email that video? Can you send it to me?
It's too large a file to email, so I didn't email it.
How did he?
It's all flash drive.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay.
But at least there's a record of what happened.
Yeah.
So any more on that?
You can just throw it.
You
She's
can
done.
go.
Could we get that video put on YouTube and have it a link to the website?
Yeah,
Oh, there you go.
If you give me the video, I can do it.
good idea.
I think it's a public document that sits here, so if we have another copy, if we'll
You could,
arrange
you could, or you could put it on YouTube. It's very simple. Well,
Create an
Anyway,
account.
if you're willing to take on that project.
yeah, I
we
would.
can take it.
I'd be willing. I'd give the link to Lazo and let the public know.
Okay, anyway, we'll get you a copy.
Thank you.
All right, trout in West Cornwall, somewhat happier situation. We met with DEP again, different group. Trout Unlimited, local citizens, interested parties, last week. So the trout and fly fishermen group want to do a study for a little bit of joke how it costs less to study trout than it does to study wastewater. So they're looking for like a $10,000–15,000 study to look,
document that area north of the covered bridge where Millbrook goes in, because it's the cooler than Furnace Brook? What was the word?
Yeah, they said it was colder than
Cold.
Furnace Brook,
Colder than Furnace Brook.
but not as,
Karen, you there? Karen?
Yeah, it's colder because it's shaded most of the way. and
Shaded all the way
it's
down.
Steeper,
Yeah,
Millbrook's.
but not as much valley.
right, so they, you know, our concerns were it didn't interfere with the fire hydrant there, that it didn't create any hazards for people that are boating. Sounded like a fairly shallow pool, but could be substantial, but shallow. I mean, it wasn't, how deep was it gonna be? We don't know yet.
Yeah, I don't know, but if they wanted it to be a lot deeper than the one that's there.
Right.
I don't know how deep the one that's there is.
and they'd survey that whole area where there's just stuff that's mostly come out of Millbrook over the years. Probably use some of that area.
I think the concern that was brought up, that you brought up, was that whatever they do, however they do it, doesn't impact the bridge or the abutments on the bridge,
Either bridge.
at any bridge,
Right.
at any time during high water, during extremely high water. And I think that's,
Because my concern is that little delta that's there is probably cut down the area underneath the bridge somewhat, constricts it somewhat to high water flow. So, anyway, they said and Roger was there, came, and said there are surveys, there's something on file of all the scour and all the
From
stuff
the
around
DOT,
the
right.
DOT, so there's a bunch of information. Overall, I thought it was a positive project to increase, I mean, the river's important, the trout are important. And if it makes it more fishable, generally a good thing. And it's just a study. at this point. And they are working with DEP. So, any other thoughts on the trout? So, I think they heard our concerns. The woman that's running it lives in Sharon. And that's about it.
well, after the last couple of days, that's probably the
Right.
reason they're trying to make it fair.
Right. So, anything else about trout? Also on water, Tammy Decker, beach manager, everything's going well down at Hammond Beach. We did do the lake study was launched. We had the people come out from Northeast Aquatics. And they did with the Cornwall Task Force take some samples of oxygen in the lake. They may be doing some other chemicals, but I can't remember. They had a good training session, and so the first samples will be done. Tammy also brought up one of the requests that she's gotten from people, because in the original easement from the Hammonds, there's no boat launching from there. The suggestion came up if the town could buy a couple of kayaks and people could use those kayaks, you know, with some sort of waiver or something from the beach. They'd have to fence off the swimming area, they couldn't go through the swimming area, but apparently over in Sharon, there's a couple of boats people can take out just from there. They can't bring their own boats in, because they have to worry about things coming in on the boats and how many boats come in, but a modest proposal is to get some kayaks and get permission from the family and from HVA that monitors the easement. I think that's a good idea.
So two kayaks are like $1,200, do they have that?
They're probably less. There's probably, no, I'm not sure, but I have to take a look and see what's in the, I asked her to get some prices right now, actually, there's some on sale. So we're past the peak of kayaking. So get some prices, get some prices, talk to the other parties. Seemed like a reasonable proposal.
Yeah, so the ones that the Cream Hill Club has,
Yeah?
are those are the only ones that are allowed in there? Like
Well-
people can't bring their own from that side either?
They can't, let's see, what's the deal? They can't currently come over and land onto our beach, they can go all the way around the lake.
No, I mean, so you have a kayak and you belong to the club, can you bring your own kayak there?
Yes,
Or you have to use the,
yeah, I think most of those kayaks that are there belong to people, but they leave them there and let people borrow them. So there's a fleet of kayaks, I think there's.
There isn't a lot of monitoring of the mussels on the kayaks that people bring in.
yeah.
But that's the whole advantage, is having some there,
They don't go into the water bodies.
that they're just there and used on Cream Hill Lake as opposed to.
But what about the liability issue, though? You know,
Well, there's.
as long as somebody wearing a life
You have to
jacket.
have a life jacket.
Oh, yeah.
So there's
Absolutely.
like
They'd have
kayaks
to-
plus life jackets.
There'd have to be, before anybody launches, they'd have to, sign off on, I'm gonna obey these rules, you're not gonna.
Right, so would we have to get some other kind of umbrella policy from the insurance company?
Well, we'd
for
have
it?
to, we'd have to talk to them for their approval.
Yeah.
Notify them.
Yeah.
it's not unreasonable, it's
No,
kind of
it's
fun,
not,
you know?
yeah, no,
and-
it's fine, I asked
and there's
years
little
ago why we couldn't kayak on, from that beach.
Right, because there's,
The answer
that's,
was, because you're not allowed.
right, that was in the original deed. So we can go back to the family, and go back to HVA. I mean, it may happen this year, it may
Yeah.
not, but I just think it's something worth pursuing now. And I think especially, because if we have one there, that's that, as opposed to people bringing stuff in.
So was that why there was a deed restriction because of the possible contamination?
Well, that was some of the concern, plus they didn't want a whole lot of boats on the lake. They didn't want to turn the beach, they gave a beach, they didn't give a marina. If you get the idea, you know, I mean, it's a reasonable thought.
There are a lot of boats on the lake already, I mean,
There
a
are.
lot of kayaks.
And there could be more, but whatever, you know, it was a very generous gift, and if they wanted to give a beachside marina, we were all fine with that too, so. So, anyway, with your permission, I'll talk to the family, talk to HVA, talk to Tammy, get some prices, next thing, we may have to take some money out of contingency or something, but I would think this would be under $1,000 at this point. See how
Yeah,
someone
there
goes.
was that one other question about the beach, why is there a giant dumpster in front of the stone wall?
Isn't that nice?
They took out the old, what you call nutshell, the land trust took that out the other day.
Oh,
And
that's
it's on
what
its
you
way
were
out.
telling me about?
Yeah.
That went in the dumpster.
Right.
Yeah, so I talked to the contractor this morning at 10:05 and asked him to make sure it goes, and he said it's supposed to go today, so I
Yeah,
think it's still there, isn't
It
it?
was
It's still there.
as of
Right.
4
Right,
o'clock.
but at least it's full, and I think the job
it's
is
full,
done,
yeah.
and, you know, it's fine as long as you.
Yeah.
It's a building, well, it's not the nutshell, it's,
It was a little cabin on the
Cabin,
lake
yeah.
that belonged to Calhoun's, maybe?
yeah, well, now it was,
Somebody-
it belongs to the land trust now.
now, but and it belonged to Hammond's, and originally it
Right.
might have been Calhoun's or something. It's
Yeah.
like it was smaller, you know, it's like 12 by 12 or something.
They were worried about kids going and drinking there and getting in trouble and liability issues, so they got rid of it. Yes.
It's the old people who do
They
that.
wouldn't give me the stones.
What?
There's a big pile of rock there, about 8 by 8 by about 10 feet tall, which kids can jump off into the lake, which they didn't think about that. But Barton Jones said I could have the stones, and then he called and said, no, don't take any more. I took like 3, because I want to build a stone wall along the beach to protect me from the beaver. Because right now I have a small fence, and I think if I 2 foot tall stone wall,
I think you.
it would keep the beaver out.
The beaver and just climb over it.
Well, there's 7 beavers in the lake right now. Yeah, so.
Okay. So anyway, we'll pursue the kayaks. I mean, we'll whack them over the head with the kayak pad. All right,
Yeah, all
so
the
that's that.
tenants.
The big news is that we heard this week that the application for the handicap accessible van shared with Goshen was approved by the state. Talked to First Selectman Valentine from Goshen this morning, said that we may have to come up with $5,000 or $6,000 jointly, and there are some grants out there and available, and he's going to pursue those. So, we're in the van business, soon to be in the kayak business. So, anyway, I think hopefully that'll be a good thing, and it probably won't be available till next spring. There's some issues about what we call it, what we put on the side, logos, flags, whatever. But anyway, he's digging into that, and I think it'll be a good thing. So again, that's something else for the Board of Finance. Because again, we may have to front the money and get reimbursed.
Well, we will have to front the money.
Right. Yeah. So did you get a package of stuff? 'Cause that came in, when did that come in, yesterday? Did you get anything on this?
There was something in the file.
Right.
I think yesterday or today.
Right, okay,
It wasn't a package of stuff, it was a letter.
right, how about,
The letter from the state that Bob had signed.
okay,
That was
and then
it.
there's also, there's gonna be an application, he wants to do a joint application to the Community Foundation, Guy Revizzi's group,
Northwest Community Foundation.
right, and also maybe the,
I know we talked to FCH,
right,
Berkshire County might have money.
right, so we're gonna probably do some joint grants. They said they wanna see the town put in a nominal amount of money to show good faith or something. So, but anyway, that's online for the spring, so.
Would we buy that through the state plan to get a better deal?
I think they have some sort of bid on these, that you get a package thing, but I'm sure I think these are standard items, so I don't think we're gonna reinvent the spec on it. But they're different sizes, there's different options, different sizes and things.
Yeah,
We're
well,
not gonna
because I
get the biggest
know
one.
Columbia County in New York last year, they bought a van, a handicap accessible
Right.
van, it cost them $50,000.
Right,
So the 20% that the towns have to kick in is 10,000, that's probably where he's coming up with that $5,000 or $6,000 number. But then someone else also said that, well, hey, maybe you can get one off the state contract and it'll be less money.
I think somebody, I wanna say Morris Litchfield, down that way just bought one, going through the process was about 55 or something, depending on what
So it
size.
was still-
What size and what you're doing with it. So, anyway, that's good news.
And then the ongoing maintenance, cost for the driver, all of that, we have to
Well-
suck that up too.
No, well, you get reimbursed a lot of, you get reimbursed per mile and per trip and all this other thing, so
From who?
from the state administering some grant.
For
So-
how long?
I believe it's an ongoing thing, so that's why Colebrook and Norfolk have minimal ongoing costs. It is what I was led to believe. You can match a lot of, it's a reimbursement. They get to front the money,
Right.
have to spend it, but eventually that money will come back
Right.
to offset the operating costs, or most of the operating costs.
So we'll have a line item in the budget
Right.
for that, so it just
For
doesn't
van.
just get lost in the general fund.
Right, yeah. So there would be, it would take a while, it would probably take a year to figure out operating costs, so there'll be a expense line in the operating.
Well, it's one of the reasons the town budget continues to rise and the state budget continues to
Yes.
rise.
Right,
As services are added
Right,
at all different kinds of levels.
I hope that works out great.
Mm.
It would be good for a lot of people.
right. Okay,
What else do we have?
that's it. Any public comments? Everybody's done. No? Okay, thanks for
A lot of
coming.
jobs going on.
Yep.
Joyce, can I-
Yeah.
Joyce, can I get copies of all the plans?